U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says it's going to take the whole world coming together to combat illicit drugs, including fentanyl. This is all part of a gathering of representatives from around the world happening in Vienna, Austria this week. More than 80 countries are meeting there as part of the United Nations Commission on Narcotic Drugs. Here in the U.S., federal officials say most of the fentanyl and the chemical components that make up fentanyl come in mostly from China. China denies that claim. However, late last year, President Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping came to an agreement to try to tackle the trafficking of these ingredients at their source, basically at the Chinese businesses that are supplying them. Here's what Secretary of State Blinken had to say about that in our interview.
In Vienna, the United Nations is bringing quite literally the entire world together, including China, to reinforce these efforts. We want to see a couple of new ingredients that go into the making of fentanyl put on a prohibited list so that they can't be traded easily or freely. We want to see countries that have been on the sidelines put more resources into law enforcement, put more resources into their healthcare systems to deal with this. And I think you'll see that coming out of Vienna in the next day or so.
But is there something more that China could be doing to help combat this issue?
Well, I think what they've been doing since the president secured their agreement back in at the end of last year is exactly what needs to happen. Now, it needs to be sustained. We need to make sure that not only are they putting out these new rules, that they're enforcing them, and we've seen that enforcement start with them taking companies down that are engaged in the illicit, illegal transfer of these ingredients, these chemicals. And we need to see through the working group that we've set up that that continues. And that, for example, a company that's taken out of business one day doesn't simply reestablish itself the next day with a new name. So that's why it's so important to stay on this.
The CDC says that on average, 100,000 Americans die every year from drug overdoses, mainly from fentanyl. This week's gathering in Vienna is adding more urgency to that issue. Maya Rodriguez, Scripps News, Washington.